What sustains you? The blood of my enemies. Today I'm very excited. I'm going to be doing a series review, which I feel like I haven't done in ages. I'm sure somebody will fact check me that you actually did one like 2 months ago, and I'm like, I feel like I haven't done these in ages. But today I'm going to be talking about the Conqueror Saga by Kiersten White. This is a young adult historical fiction trilogy consisting of the books And I Darken, Now I Rise, and Bright We Burn. I came to this trilogy via NetGalley. I was kind of skimming for a new book to read, and I saw the first book, And I Darken, and I remember thinking, that cover, like aesthetic, yes, I love it. What is this? And I'd heard of Kiersten White. I don't think I read anything by her. I could be wrong. But I had heard her name. I knew she was a pretty popular young adult author, and I very briefly and shallowly skimmed the kind of synopsis blurb for these books. I say very shallowly because I went in with absolutely the wrong expectations, and they were admittedly pretty low. I thought that I'd read that And I Darken was going to be Dracula, but a girl. That's not entirely wrong, but it's not right either. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually love the character of Dracula. Like, if you're gonna give me vampires, if you tell me you're playing with Dracula, I'm really interested. I think that Dracula as a character is fantastic. What he is, almost more as a symbol and a thematic element in his titular novel, I absolutely adore. Although I've only read Dracula once, I will never read it again because I loathe its writing style. I think the writing style ruins a really good story. I love Dracula. Speaking of Dracula, if you've never seen the adaptation that Francis Ford Coppola directed starring Winona Ryder, Gary Oldman, and Keanu Reeves, and Sir Anthony Hopkins, you should really get on that. It is an experience I quite like. So, And I Darken is not Dracula, but a girl. It is, however, Vlad Dracul, Vlad III, Vlad the Impaler, the historical inspiration for Count Dracula, but a girl. So Vlad is now Lada. You probably all guessed this by the fact I called this a historical fiction trilogy and not a paranormal or supernatural trilogy. Sometimes I am as dumb as I look. So yes, Vlad is now Lada, and we do also have the characters of Radu, who is Lada's brother, and the future emperor of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed. These are all historical figures. I suppose I should say there might be spoilers in here. I'm going to try and keep this as reasonably vague as possible and try and hit mostly thematic elements. But this is historical fiction. We are, for the most part, following a lot of history that you can very easily wiki. So if I say something and it's considered a spoiler, I'm sorry. The internet had spoiled it long before I did. I'm going to do my best. So I absolutely adored this trilogy, and it's one of the few trilogies that I think not only improves as it goes along, but actually had a conclusion that I found incredibly satisfying. Like, I finished it and went, this is a good end for every single character, especially our primary POVs, Lada and Radu, and then also Mehmed. Let's actually talk about Mehmed. Mehmed is not a point of view character. What we learn of Mehmed is his interactions with Lada and Radu from the first book onward. The opening of the first book, Lada and Radu, their father is killed, and he was the prince of Wallachia. He's kind of the figurehead who's in charge. And they are essentially sold off to the Ottoman Empire, and that's where they grow up with the Ottomans, and that's where they meet Mehmed, who's the Sultan's son, and, wants to be the future Sultan, etc., etc. I think Mehmed is the least interesting character in this whole thing. And I am including every side character. I think Mehmed is the least interesting character in the entirety of the book. He's not a POV, so it's not that big of a deal, but on the flip side, it is a really big deal because he is a pivotal figure in both Lada and Radu's lives because he's at the center of their love triangle. Yes, I did put air quotes around that. I'll get to that in a moment, but yes, he's actually in the love triangle between Lada and Radu. Both of the siblings have some sort of feeling for Mehmed. LGBTQIA representation. There's a bunch of it. We will get to that when I talk about Radu. You're probably going to hear me frequently say, we'll get to that. It's very tough for me to try and word vomit my feelings on this trilogy because there's a lot of angles I could take it from, so I'm doing my best to word vomit with some sense of control here. Mahmed, I think, had the potential to be very interesting. I mean, he is a character who, from the beginning, he says, like, he has this destiny, that he will be the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, and that he will conquer and take Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul. And he sees it literally as, like, his destiny. This is something he will do. He never doubts that he'll do it, and he will stop at nothing to do it. He is very much, even as a young child, growing up to be the epitome of a conquering ruler. Which is why I think he and Lada have their element of the love triangle. What's interesting is I don't actually think there's love between the two of them. I think there is a good deal of sexual energy and tension, like they clearly are sexually attracted to each other. Very clearly are. And I think to a degree they recognize a kindred spirit in each other. They are both very strong-willed people. They are very much like, I want that. I will take it. I will have it. It's not really a question in their mind. They both have this sense of purpose and destiny. In the case of Ahmed, it's that he will be Sultan and he will take Constantinople and make it essentially the crown jewel of his empire, effectually basically ending the Holy Roman Empire. And for Lada, it's that she will take back Wallachia and she will become Prince of Wallachia. That is never a doubt in her mind. It's that she will do that. That is her purpose in life. So I think these two almost forces of nature are bound to kind of attract and yet also clash. And where I think they clash is different ideologies where it comes to basis of merit. I'm going to talk about this more when I talk about Lada, because her philosophy is all about rewarding merit regardless of social class, situation, or placement, and regardless of sex/gender. That is not Mahmed's thing. Mahmed, while he is a fairly forward-thinking ruler, as we witness in really especially the third book, he's still kind of a representation of the establishment, and the establishment at the time is a highly internalized misogyny and sexism. Women weren't really people, which is something that Lada obviously chafes against quite a lot in these books, and also the valuing of status, of family line, of lineage over, but this, say, peasant actually has way more skills and is more deserving, is more meritorious of something like land, title, power, position. He's still very much that. And yet at the same time, he straddles between Radu and Lada. Lada is very much a conqueror. Radu, so we'll get to him, is very much kind of a ruler. Mahmed is kind of the conquering ruler. He is, in a way, the blending of the two siblings and also a dulling of the two siblings. I think he truly is not as smart as Radu, and he's not as vicious as Lada. So he's kind of the both of them, but like if you took 50% of each of them. And so Mahmed I didn't find interesting. Really in the beginning, in the first book, I was like, he's the center of the love triangle. I kind of don't care about him because I don't get his POV. All I get is him from Radu or Lada's perspective, and especially from Radu's perspective, it's a lot of Radu just kind of mooning over him, and I was like, Radu, sweetheart, you could do so much better. I don't get it. And in the case of Lada, I was like, I guess I kind of get it, but I still don't get it. I never really saw the appeal of him as a character. And in the second book, actually, we don't spend a lot of time with him, which really makes me love the second book, in addition to so many other things, like the Siege of Constantinople gives me life, and I cannot tell you how much it gives me life. But being apart from Mahmed was so great, especially for the character of Radu, because it's where I actually really started to like Radu, because he blossomed, and he wasn't just, I'm mooning over Mahmed, and I will do anything for Mahmed, because I love him so much, even though, I love my sister, and I'm really done with this shit. And then suddenly he's off in Constantinople, and I was like, oh my god, I suddenly really like Radu, because I no longer have to deal with Mahmed. And then by the third book, there was a point, if you follow me on Goodreads, I think I only had 2 status updates for this. One, which was that quote I had at the beginning. The second one being, honestly, fuck Mahmed. He said something that is such, it's literally that internal misogyny being vocalized, and the fact that he really doesn't understand Lada, even though he thinks he does. And it made me grind my teeth. It made me want to clock him. I cannot tell you how hard I wanted to clock him. And then I just kind of wanted Lada to cut his heart out and then eat it in front of him in his last dying moments. That's something she would probably honestly do, I'm not gonna lie. And the thing that Mahmed never really understands about Lada is that he really wants her to be his queen, essentially. What he doesn't get is that she would be sacrificing all of the power that she has taken for herself because she would have to answer to him, and she doesn't want to answer to him. She says, no, I don't want to have power that's being given to me by a man or by a husband or by you. It's mine. I want it in my own right. And the fact that Mahmed is never able to consider that, because I think he can't get past the fact that Lada is a woman. She should want to be his queen. And I'm like, go fuck yourself, brah. Like, just fuck you. So, Mahmed was my least favorite character of the whole thing, including every single side character. Actually, to be fair, most of the side characters are really good / interesting, so I don't like Mahmed. So then let's talk about Radu. Radu is Lada's brother. He is portrayed very much as kind of the intellectual. If she's the, sharp / blunt instrument, he is the shadow master. Like, he is really good at court politics. He excels in it, actually. What I like about Radu is so many things. He's obviously, as I previously mentioned, he is gay. He has a lot of feelings for Mahmed, and what I think is so fascinating about his journey is because we are in, I think it's like the 13 or so hundreds. Obviously, homosexuality, not a thing. You're not supposed to... Yeah. Many problems related to that, both in being a Christian, which he starts as, and then he eventually converts to Islam. He's kind of actually forcibly made to convert, but he actually grows to love it. He becomes quite a devout Muslim. His faith is so important to him, which I'm sure for a whole host of readers, that's actually a great thing to see. Not only do you have an LGBT character with such a prominent role. I mean, he is the deuteragonist. He is the other protagonist. He's not a side character, but who's also a man of Islam. I'm trying to make sure I say this right, so forgive me if I'm, applying the incorrect labels. And his faith is a huge part of who he is, which is why he struggles with his sexuality so much. And it's interesting because it's angst, but not like the angst that I'm so used to reading in like a YA contemporary. It's him trying to figure out, his love with regards to his faith and with regards to the world, and especially the politics that he plays in, which he's on the world stage essentially because he's at Mahmed's side as his, advisor. And it's really interesting the tricky court politics he kind of needs to play. What I also like is that we don't get bogged down in the court politics. You get a bit of it in the second book, Now I Rise, but then Radu spends almost the entirety of Now I Rise behind enemy lines in Constantinople, essentially as a spy. Mahmed sends him there because there is a diplomat, essentially, from Constantinople who's related to the Emperor of Constantinople, the Holy Roman Emperor, in other words, and he seems to clearly get along with Radu. Now, all of us reading are like, dude, he is gay and has a crush on you. Like, wow, dude. And because Radu is, realizes that he is different for, having the feelings towards men that he's understood he's supposed to have towards women, he clearly doesn't really consider this. And I'm sitting there, like, listening to this book going, oh my God, child. You're so fucking dense, it makes me hurt. Especially because said diplomat is named Cyprian. He is precious, and he is fabulous. He's such a great character, and when a lot of the second book is spent in the fact that it's basically Islam versus Christianity, I like that there's good representations of both faiths. I mean, they're both Radu and Cyprian, and even both Mahmed and Constantine are really great, almost ambassadors for their faith. They are good people who are just in tough situations. I mean, they're in war with each other, but they are good people. And there's something I love about that, which made the actual siege of Constantinople and all the things that go down during it all the more heartbreaking, because I'm like, these are just decent people who happen to have a difference of faith. There's something so touching about it, and I think White really balances that well, because I can't imagine how hard it probably is to try and write that balance, but I think she does it so well, and it's so important to Radu's character in the second book. The second book is really what, for me, shapes Radu, The first book kind of puts him together. I honestly wasn't too interested in him in the first book. I was much more interested in Lada. But in the second book, I grew to really love Radu's perspective. I was like, wow, he's actually a really complex character who's undergoing a lot of things, especially because he gets married in between book 1 and book 2, and his wife Nazira is a gay woman. So they're literally each other's beards. She has a wife who poses as like her maid, if I recall correctly. And I love the fact that, again, we have more LGBT representation, and not only that, LGBT representation of Muslim women. And I'm like, this is so great, actually. I mean, obviously, I cannot identify, that is not me, but I do think, I was like, this is not something I see, and that's something I actively notice and go, but like, this is awesome. And also, Nazira is fabulous. She is so good. She's part of what made me start really liking Radu. It was because of their relationship and also their friendship with Cyprian and like how complicated it is. I just go, damn, this is good shit. This is really good shit. And the fact that I think I've seen so many people sleeping on this series, I'm like, guys, you do not know what you're missing in terms of the characters here. And not only that, in terms of the history, and also for me, the action. The action really comes with Lada. Lada, my true prince of Wallachia. I adore Lada. I think Lada is one of the best female protagonists ever written. You can fight me on it. And I like her because Kiersten White was not afraid to write a character who is arguably unlikable. I can see people not liking Lada, and I can understand why they wouldn't. And yet I think she's incredible. There's something about her that's so hard, so unflinching, so unforgiving, and unapologetic that I adore. And it makes so much sense with her character. She's a character who grew up in a relatively unstable and violent environment. Wallachia is not stable. So Wallachia is essentially, yes, her father was the prince of Wallachia, but Wallachia is really actually kind of controlled by these nobles called the boyars. The boyars basically have all the armies, they have the land, and it makes it really easy for them to then suddenly overthrow the prince of Wallachia, which is sort of what happens. They do with the help of the Ottomans, like the huge betrayal. It's Lada's childhood, and then she's with the Ottomans, who she hates. I mean, she hates them on a new level. She joins their Yanacheries, one of their kind of elite fighting force, and in there she kind of creates a crew around herself. She is, rather like Mahmed, a kind of cult of personality. She is a very strong force of will, and so when she says, I'm going to take back Wallachia, will you follow me? Like, a whole bunch of the Yanacheries come with her, and I'm going, yeah, I get it. There is this charisma to her, even though ironically she's awful at the court politics, and it's because she's so honest. She's very to the point, very blunt. She doesn't sugarcoat. She doesn't want to make deals. She says, this is what's going to happen. Next. And I do, again, like the fact that White was not afraid to write a character who was unlikable. In fact, she wrote a very interesting post that I think was on like the Goodreads blog, where she talked about how sometimes she was tempted to try and soften Lada, or maybe not be so hard, and yet it felt so against her character. And I went, yeah, if you try to soften Lada at all, it's not Lada. The point is that she is brutal. I mean, she is a female version of Vlad the Impaler. There's an entire scene in the third book where the Ottomans are trying to get into Wallachia, and she has basically turned the land against them, like has turned it all into like a swamp and wrecked everything because she knows it'll slow them down and cause them problems, and then has lined the way to the capital with impaled Ottomans and impaled boyars. And it's like, fucking Christ. What the fuck, girl? And that's how she is. That's just what she does. She makes a statement. What I also like about Lada, I mean, she is really our character who shows us just how horridly internalized the misogyny of the time was, because she's constantly fighting for what she wants, and she constantly is having to essentially kowtow to male figures, and often male figures who she could just kill. Like, they're not worthy of her, and she's being told she needs to bow to them. She needs to appeal to their whims. And it's so frustrating because she is a character who says, I reward merit. When she initially starts basically taking over Wallachia with her Yanacheries, she comes upon one boyar's land, and like all the women are working the fields, and one woman in particular basically kills the boyar for like raping her and like tons of other things. And she's like, you know, what's your name? And she's like, yeah, it's like, whose land with this? Oh, it's like this boyar. She goes, no, it's your land now. You've been working it, and you killed him, as you rightfully should have, quite frankly. It's yours now. She values merit. If she sees that you have worked the land, then it's your land. It's not some noble who's not getting his hands in the dirt and trying and getting dirty. And Lada isn't just all talk. She works hard. She has borderline a death wish, especially when it comes to fighting. She throws herself in the front line. She goes behind enemy lines. I mean, she is in the thick of it always. And I think that's part of what adds to her cult of personality and why people really want to follow her, especially the, you know, peasants and the people of Wallachia. The boyars absolutely hate her, but the people of Wallachia, the Wallachians, love her. For good reason, because she values them. She doesn't care whether you're rich or poor. She's like, if you can do something, you're of use. Next. And she's also very much like Vlad the Impaler, harsh in her punishments. She does not go easy. And in fact, there is a fantastic scene in the third book, gives you very Red Wedding vibes, and it is based on a historical incident with Vlad III and the boyars of Wallachia. It's great. It's so good. And I will admit, in the third book, I started to get nervous because, like I said, you can wiki Vlad III and, you know, read his bio and find out what happened to him. So I knew what happened to him, and I was like, oh my god, how are you gonna do this? Like, this is not gonna be good. I'm very, very, very nervous. And Kiersten White pulled out an ending that I was just shocked by. I was like, wow, that's good. Okay, you win. And I really love Lada's perspective also because she's got some really great side characters with her, where Radu has Nazira and eventually Cyprian and all these others. Lada has her Yanacheries, and they are awesome. They're so good. I love them. They're like all my babies and my favorites. Prepare for all of your favorites to potentially die, by the way. This is war. I'm trying to figure out a way to wrap this up. What I think is so great about this trilogy is not only this fantastic array of characters, balanced both in tandem with and against each other, and in very complicated relationships with each other. The sibling relationship between Lada and Radu is so incredibly complicated, and the way it kind of comes to its finale and to a head in the third book is like heartbreaking and incredible. As much as I don't like Mahmed, the interesting relationships in terms of contrasting him with Lada and Radu is great stuff. I think the, as far as I can tell, relative historical accuracy and also relative historical research that clearly went into this book. I mean, clearly Kiersten White did a lot of reading and did a lot of research for this book. I will say that also the interesting thematic elements of, again, internalized misogyny, of rewarding merit versus rewarding, like, social class, of how it's really hard to work with a system that's so broken, and how breaking the system is also just as difficult because then you need to try and rebuild it, which is really the themes of conquering versus ruling, and can you do both? Is it possible? And how, and just, I mean, the different forms of love and of hate and all the emotions of war and conflict, the power, the politics and the power playing between those in charge. There is so much going on in this trilogy, and I think it's ultimately been really slept on by the community, which is such a shame. I understand these are kind of intimidating looking books. I mean, they are large. I will also say, while they are at a slower pace, they are consistently paced. And I will also say, the audiobooks are fantastic. The pronunciations of the reader are flawless, and I think that if you are intimidated by the large size of these, you should 110% listen to them. I will link the audibles down below. I think this is a fantastic audiobook series. I actually listened to them through my library, and I'm waiting to get enough credits so that I can just get all three, because I adore them, and I will be re-listening to these. I think these are phenomenal books, and it's historical fiction on a level that I don't really always see in YA, and certainly not this well done across 3 books. All hail our Prince of Wallachia. Thanks for watching me ramble today. If you'd like to see more from me, go ahead and click that button with my face on it. It'll take you to my channel, where I ramble about a whole lot of different things. Got some thoughts of your own? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And make sure that if you want to see more ramblings from me, you click that little subscribe button. That's it for me today, you guys, so until next time.
Cheers.